Hi, it's Lil from Me by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Now, a few people recently have asked about a piece that I just painted, which I didn't do a tutorial on. It's the bar piece. If you look at this photo here, and I'm going to show you how to recreate that painted piece with some transfers on, some IOD transfers on, just by following along. A couple of people have asked for tutorials, and so I thought this is what I would do. So I've got this little barley twist leg table. It's not particularly fancy. It's got nice legs. It's got a nice tabletop to put some transfers on. So I'm going to do this today. I've just washed it, cleaned it, made sure there's no dust or debris on it. Now, you're going to need some basic brushes. We can have some really dodgy brushes because the technique is all about stippling, and we're going to put our first coat on with a brush that looks a bit like this. It's look a bit grimy, and these are for our next one, and a good brush to blend with. So that's nothing fancy for this. These are the brushes I'm going to be using, and the paint I'm using today is Annie Sloan paint. So our base is going to be old ochre. Now, generally what you would do is start as a darker colour when you're doing your blends and things, but I'm starting with a lighter one. French linen and some olive. These are the two top coat colours, and then we're going to use waxes and light and dark waxes to bring out detail and things. Now, can I just show you this paint? This is near the end of the can of this paint. I think Matt's trying to get a better look of how it looks. How's that? It's pretty thick, and it's nearly at the end of the can. It's good like this. Use the ends of your can for when you're especially looking for texture. There's not much in it, but this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm going to start and show you. I'm not going to show you the whole base coat. I'm just going to show you a little bit on the top of how. Now, on the bar area, what I did was I kept where I wanted to put my transfers the paler colour, but I'm going to show you how I applied the paint. So all I did was this. Now, don't worry if this looks messy and you can see the brown showing through. You actually want that because it's the layers and texture you're looking for. You are going to do 2 coats of this paler colour, the old ochre on top, so your transfer shows up. But this is how you apply the texture all over the piece, just like this. And you can have thicker and darker and lighter areas, when your paint gets a little bit less on your brush. So you can have lighter areas here and darker areas there, and you just literally cover the whole piece like this. I'm not bothered if there's like pieces like this that sit up. The more texture the better, and it's okay. You can put your transfer over the top of this. Transfers work good on texture as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my base coat of my piece like this all the way over the piece, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how I put the sort of grey green colour on top of it like I did with the bar. But I'll carry on and do this, and when it's completely dry we'll come back and we'll do the rest. Okay, so the stippling's been done all over, and as you can see, this is all intentional. I've left parts that haven't been painted. You can see on the top some of it's thicker and some of it's lighter, and I've covered the whole piece in the old ochre. This is the kind of look that you want to kind of have for your first coat. Now I'm going to do my second coat now. I'm going to go back over this part here and make it lighter. So I'm kind of trying to avoid it, but around the edges I'm going to start my mix. So as I said, here I have the French linen, and here I have the olive, and I'm going to start by just the French linen is quite thick. So as you can see, I'm just kind of like spattering that around the edges, and I'm going to do something quite naughty. I'm not actually going to clean my brush, and now I'm going to do this with the olive, and I'm just blending the olive. Now this looks darker than it will be because we will be going back over this with the old ochre. So don't panic if you think this is a much darker sort of grey green than you'd wanted. This is just me mixing and blending the two by stippling them together. So just to recap, we have stippled over the old ochre, which is this sort of whitey cream. Then we've added olive and French linen on top of this. Now while this is still quite damp, you don't want it too dry. I quite like it damp so that it kind of has a bit more movement. You're going to come back in with your old ochre. But before I do anything, I'm going to do here first, because this is where I want to have any transfer that I'm going to put on. Now I can blend this better at the time, but this is just its second coat of this. And I'll blend it in a minute. Oh, I'm kneeling in the paint. I'm not too worried if any of my dark wood shows through, because we are going to be bringing some of that dark wood through. We're going to chip it a little bit on the top when we put some transfers and things on, so you know, it's not, I don't want it one solid sort of colour. I want the sort of kind of darker tones coming through, so I'm not too concerned how that looks. Now we've done that, this is where it kind of, you get to the adding this over the rest of the piece. So just kind of, we don't want to kind of blend it too much with that there just now. So if we start here on the edge, what you're going to do is you're going to start giving it, and I've only got the same amount that I just dipped my brush in before. You just need a tiny bit. All this is doing is just highlighting that texture that you added. You want kind of whiter splodges, you want it stippled into the edges, you want all this kind of detail to bring out. And this is exactly the same technique that I did with the bar. So just like this. You're kind of blending it, you're kind of pushing it in quite hard into the paint to make it work that way. Table's a bit rocky. Now, you saw how much that's taken since I last dipped my paint in my paintbrush. Not very much, so this time I'm going to go in again, but I just want the tiniest amount, really. And if I was you, I'd maybe offload a little bit. It doesn't matter if some areas are slightly paler, because the finish will dry quite nice. Now I'm going to turn this table to the camera again so you can see this side without trying to get it onto my clothes, so we can start again. Just remember, when it's barley twist legs, you have to kind of get in both sides, you know, around the back as well, because when the table's sitting, it needs to look like it's uniform. And now that there's not much on my brush, I'm just going to, where I didn't add it to the top, let's just kind of blend that out as well. Anywhere where it's too white, we're just, can you see me just over blending that into, so there's not a rough finish to where that starts. And that's just small stipply strokes, because the paint's still wet and it's going to move. And I'll do the same here. And that's me just softening up the I think there's a hair on that there. I'm going to come in with a wet brush in a minute, and I'm going to move some of this out a bit. So if you take that here, and we get clean, damp, so you're just being light and feathery. You're not like, at this stage you're not kind of mashing two colours together. Now I haven't really kind of softened that side yet, so I'll kind of go back with my ochre brush and just go and it gives that sort of cloudy, sorry, here on my paint again. I don't know where it's coming from, maybe I'm molting. Whoop, whoop. You don't want to overwork it because you can see parts here where it's coming off, but I quite like that, so I'm going to try and recreate that over here and see if I can get it to come off over here. I think my wetter brush will probably make that happen. Yeah, see, there it is, it's starting to work away, and if I do this with my dry brush, that should pull it out. Now, I'm not happy with this edge here. I'm not going to play too much more. It's a kind of odd shape. Let me. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to bring in my darker brush. So this was the one that I was blending the olive and the French linen with. And this is the only place I would probably do this on the tabletop. Now, I'm not going to fiddle about with that anymore. I'm just going to leave that the way that is right now and get back to adding my yellow ochre over the top of here, and just making sure that you catch all the parts. Can you see it's got that kind of mottled appearance? This is the kind of look you're going for. Just making sure you catch everywhere. Any parts that you're not quite happy with, just go over with them again. I'm just going to move my paint, and I'm going to turn my table around again so that you're facing the front. Offload a little bit of the white. So it's really pretty simple. You can blend more than two colours. You can have 3 or 4, or you can have 5 colours. You can have as many going at once, and you can come back with, if you think it's got too light, you want to come back with your darker brush. If you think it's not dark enough, you can come back with the darker. You can adjust the colour of this. And it's just stipple blending it. You're just blending the paint together by stippling it. That's all you're doing it. You need quite a bit of force pressure to stipple it onto to mix the colours. But the likes, if you're wanting a sort of blended, you're just kind of tickling it almost. And that's really it. I've got one more side. I just want to make sure that I've done in these parts here, because they're the parts that will show once it's done. Whew, I'm building up a sweat. It's hard work. So I'm coming all the way back round, I think now, to the front, I think. Yep. Now, the trick next is, before we start doing anything else to it, is to really let it dry. Now, once it's dried, if you're not happy with certain areas, you can adjust it. You can still adjust it. You can just paint over the top of it and adjust it a bit more. Like I'm a wee bit unhappy about this here, it's a bit pale. So I want to bring a little bit of the darker stuff back in. Just stipple that along there. Now the next thing, once it's dry, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pick out areas to get a heavy grit sandpaper. I'm going to pick out areas to sand. When it's completely dry, we're going to give it a quick spray of sealer, and then we're going to apply some transfers. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add our light wax and our dark wax, which will bring out sides underneath, make it look a little bit more kind of worn and a little bit more aged. But that's where we're at so far, and we'll just let that dry. So I'm using the brocante transfers. Now I had 2 of them, so hence the reason why I've got repeats here, but I've decided that I'm going to use this flower on both sides. So I'm just cutting these out, and with the bar obviously I used a retired transfer and some of the entomology butterflies over the top. That's what I did with that. So I'm going to apply these 2 first, and we'll see what happens with the rest. So the piece is all dry, and I'm going to, where there's the light and dark spots, I'm going to distress this, but I want to just get my transfer on first. So I was thinking of doing this one and this way on it, and something across the middle, whatever that may be. We'll work that out in a minute. So if you have never applied a transfer before, you can apply it in one whole big section when you get it with some of the transfers, or you can apply it in parts. And for this one, I'm going to be applying it like this. Probably sometimes if you're not sure about them, you can tape them down first. And literally, I like to kind of give it a good old kind of all over first before I start to, you know, burnish it on, just to make sure that it's all down. So then you just really just give it billio. You will start to see, if you can see here, when a transfer starts to come off, because what happens is it becomes very clear on this side. You'll know when it's happening. So if you just kind of push down from where you have it adhering all the way down to the bottom, that generally sort of works. Lost a little bit of my branch down there just by going a little bit too quickly. There we go, fixed. If that happens, you can just flip it round. Then what I like to do is just give it a good burnish into the piece with this side, not this side where you rub the black onto it. Ask me how I know. So that's on there, and that looks pretty good. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip this round, and I'm going to do the exact same. Now, as I said, I have 2 of the same transfers, so I can afford to do this with this one. But if you've only got one, it's a good way to just, when it's something small like this, it's a good way to use up pieces and parts of other transfers that you have. So again, I'm just kind of getting it down, stuck down first, making sure that it's not really going to move, and then Same again. Sometimes if you get a little kind of like bit of wiggle room, you can kind of I think we can call that good. Oh, I've done exactly the same piece as I did before. There we go. There. So you can see why I kind of had the paler coming into the middle, but I want to put something here to build it up. So I'm just going to take another part of this here, and I think I might have it. Sometimes it's easier to tell where you want to put your position in if you take the back off it. I'm not particularly looking for center here, I'm just going for what I think looks good. And I'm going to stand up actually, because this is the part where you realise it's completely not straight. Do I want it over? Up here. I think I'm going to put it here. And that looks like where I want to put it. And again, just all over, just to kind of get it in place first before you give it a right good. I think you just have to be brave when you do things like this. I think I've got it. Aha, no. There we go. Actually, there's a little bit there. In the wee thin line. There we go, definitely now. And I don't really want to make this too busy, but I think this little chap here could be just what I'm looking for. And I'm wondering whether I have it on my other sheet. I don't think I do. And I'm thinking, like this. So this is a very kind of, it's not what I normally do, very bohemian, very bright, lots of layers, lots of distress, lots of chipping, lots of bit of everything, but this is quite a good look to do if you're looking for sort of kind of quite simple pale colours, understated. Now we've got this on, and what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start giving it a little bit of distress. I've got some really heavy grit. Now we are going to put like dark and light wax on this. I'm going to kind of lightly sand this with sandpaper, go up and down like that, because that gives you good distressing. And then if you wipe it with a cloth like that, you'll get think about how things would naturally distress. Don't go right round the edges. That's not how they would distress. You know, maybe something's bumped it or marked it on the top or taken the finish off it. So I'm just going to extend that along a little bit. And the same on this side. And where I just kind of just wipe that. A bit here maybe. So whereas you've kind of started sanding it, you can kind of finish it with the cloth. It just kind of gives it a wee bit of a help. Yeah. Maybe a little bit here. Just a little bit of interest. Now, I don't actually have it with me, but I do have a light sandpaper which I'm going to sand over here, but I'll do that in a minute when I pause the camera. So these raised spots would probably get a bit of a bump, so we'll give them a little bit of just a little bit of ding, and maybe here. This is where you can go too much, so just a little bit. I mean, I'm sure this is quite heavily distressed to some people. What would happen here is you've got kicks, so let's just do that. Yep. And then just wipe it along with your cloth like that. Now, if that's been heavily kicked on this side, we're not having this one like this one, so we'd maybe just do this here. Give it a wipe. And maybe just a revealed edge down there. And that's probably enough. I'm going to turn it round. And maybe just a bit here. So if you want a lighter and a less messy, use your cloth. And if you want a kind of right scrape, use some heavy duty sandpaper with a heavy grit on it. And you don't want to go too much. And I think that's probably all I'm going to do on here. Yeah, that's a nice, I like that piece there. Without the hair stuck to it might be nice. Now, flip it round again. Same deal. See if we can try and get that again on that edge. And last side. Let's have a particularly distressed leg here. Nice. Right, I'm going to stop the camera while I just get some sandpaper for the top, and I'll just show you what I'm going to do with the waxing. So I've got a fine grit sandpaper here, And all I'm going to do is, I'm just going to quite slightly just rub this in. It kind of makes it look like it's part of the piece. It gives it that sort of vintage, and this is where all the texture that you've built up underneath works in your favour. It has to be really fine though. Now Martin was pointing out off camera, this was giving him a bit of an eye twitch where this didn't, you know, come out on when I transferred it, but to me that looks perfect because I'm going to get rid of some of these. Like it's a little bit kind of like, if it was old, some of the letters would have worn away. So, you know, you want to kind of go for that look. And when I did the bar, there was quite a few bits that didn't, when I put the transfer on, didn't actually transfer off, and that was what I kind of liked about it. So now, I think we can get on to the fun part. But what I'm going to do before I do anything else, and I won't do it in camera, is I have some clear wax. I am going to coat the whole piece in clear wax, and then I'm going to come back with some dark wax and some white wax, and I'm going to show you how to add a little bit more definition, but I'm going to clear wax it first. Dark wax. Where would the dark wax be? Where would your shadows be? Where do you want to make darker? Where do you want to make lighter? So this is entirely up to you. Now, clear wax, always clear wax before you use dark wax. Ask me how I know. It's just that you'll never get the dark wax back off. Clear wax first, it kind of like means you can wipe it around a little bit more. So dark wax, I'm going to have a little bit in there, definitely. And you're just going to kind of give it a wee bit of a shadow, like it's just got a wee bit dirty in there. Where else are you going to have it? Just apply it with an artist brush, you know, like an acrylic brush, something rough. Maybe somewhere in here. Some in here. And the good thing is with having that clear wax applied, we can, you know, we can move it around. Put a little bit more in there. Some here. And you don't always need to wipe it away, you can just pat it. You know, like this is where all the fun bits come in. So I put dark wax on here, but I'm actually going to show you what I'm going to do with the white wax. The white wax, I'm just going to dip my finger in, and I'm just going to kind of highlight here. So this is my white wax. So where would the light hit it? I think here. Let's give a wee bit of a rub of a highlight here. And just smooth it in with your fingers. I think it's good to use your fingers. You're kind of like, you're more at one with it. So where your highlights here are going to be, where the light hits here probably. Just give them a wee wipe with some white wax. Maybe some here, and just leave that like that. And probably this sort of rim here, but not this rim. This rim here. This one here is going to have the dark in it. So you're going to run your dark along here. And then you're going to kind of wipe that off there. And then you're going to get your white and you're going to go along here. Rub it up into the dark. Like that. Where else? You're going to have some highlights here. Give that a wee bit of a rub in. Yeah, I quite like to see some wax, doing white wax, just kind of like, and you'll see that on the bar piece, there's some white bits, and it's just me where I've put some white wax. Pat it in. Think of it as like makeup. It's, you know, where would you put it? Yeah, I think there. Am I happy with this side? I think I am. I'm going to put a little bit here. A little bit of rubbing. A little bit dark here. Try a wee bit dark around this edge. Yeah. So I'm going to turn this round. I'm not going to do this side. Getting into funny angles now. So we're gonna. I might need to do a wee bit of adjusting this when I actually stand up because I'm a kind of funky angle here, but we'll see where we go. Dark, and then highlight white. Maybe a bit much there. Oop. I think I went a bit crazy there with the white wax. So what else? We're having some dark here. And you can see I'm just going to go around the whole piece and finish it off now with the dark and the light wax, because you can see what it is that I'm trying to achieve. I'm kind of rubbing where it will be dirty and dark and highlighting where it will be lighter. I'm going to put some here, I'm going to put some in here. That's got a little bit too dark, and if it gets a little bit dark like that, just rub your finger in the clear wax and it rubs it away. Just takes it away. And that's why you should always kind of like clear wax first. I'm going to put a wee bit of highlight here. So I'm darkening this inner edge here with my finger. Like it's got a little bit dirty, you know, somebody's kicked it. Because that could happen. Yeah, big dirty footprint. It's getting kind of stuck on my blanket now. So we're going to put some highlight just there. Just rub that in with my fingers. And I'm going to do a bit of a dark here, but with a white in the middle, like that. With that bit of waxing. Again, we'll maybe make this bit here a little bit dirtier, and under here, and maybe a highlight on here. So if you work on like highlights and lowlights, and we'll get to the top in a minute. So just the same again, it's where you think it should go. So the dark along this edge here, make sure you get it right in there. Then we're taking a dark wax cloth and we're making that nice and grungy. Finger in the white wax. Give that wee bit of a highlight. Might even, that's okay. Highlight here. And highlight here. And darken up here. That gives it a nice kind of darken up that edge. Just rub that in. Bit of a dirty patch in there. bottom here. And you can see it hasn't taken long to kind of like recreate that sort of aged, highlighted. This hasn't taken me very long at all. I mean, I think if it wasn't on camera, I would be taking maybe a little bit longer, but not much longer. Highlighting the centre here. And we'll go there a bit.
So for the rest of the piece, this is all I'm doing. I'm in the white highlight and I'm using dark wax to put shadow into the piece, making sure that I'm turning it round because you don't want an area of your table not finished when you have the final piece. I'm rubbing it with a cloth to kind of give it that sort of aged look, and I'm applying the white wax with my finger and picking out areas where the light, you want the light to hit it, and recessing the dark back with the dark wax, making sure if you've got a barley twist leg that you're working in where the dust and the dirt might settle, and you're using your dark wax to create the dirt and the light wax to highlight it, and blending it all in with my finger and my cloth together. And you just need to, this is a part of the process where you have to kind of just work it out for yourself, where you think it will be. But just remember, if you apply far too much dark wax, all you need to do is, you've got clear wax underneath it, so it's quite forgiving. Just put a little bit clear over the top of your darks and just rub it back again. When it comes to the tabletop, like I'm doing here, again, that's your choice, how much age you want to put in it. I'm using the dark wax to kind of go around and give it a little bit of shadow, because it wouldn't be pristine, rubby around the edge I'm trying to do here. I'm using just this brush to apply the wax to give it that sort of shadow. I'm kind of going in parts of my transfer and round it, not too much, just little bits, and then I'm kind of smoothing it away with my finger. Now what I'm using is my finger and the brush and my hand, just to make sure that it's all, because the tabletop, you do want it to look as good as you can, so you're kind of gonna put a little bit more work into this. I'm now applying the white wax to the edges to kind of lift it, and I'm giving it some highlights around the transfer after I've put the dark on, just to kind of give it a lift. And you can see that from the video, that's all I'm doing. And the highlighting bit and the low lighting is all up to you.
So that's the piece finished. This was really a quick tutorial for those that had saw the bar that I had done and wanted to know. There was a couple of people who'd asked me for a tutorial of how I did the paint finish. So that's the paint finish, and that's how I did it. I've been Lel from Made by Marley. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing, push the bell so you're notified when we release a new video. And if you like it, say you like it, and if you don't, well, that's okay too. And I'll see you again another day.